the point is that the abstract talks about as the US and EU impose greater and deeper sanctions and trade restrictions on major economies of the global south, an attempt to limit market access, the new liberal international political and economic order is proving to be eroding from within. This paper discusses the evident necessity and demand for new institutions in the political and economic relations for emerging post-international order. If there is a way to reduce this, it would help me to cover my subject. One second, let me see if I can. Let me see if I can reduce. It doesn't help to reduce the.
Going the other way.
It doesn't help me to reduce the size of the screen. Okay, I'm not sure what the title of this section is. As I hold on 1 second.
Masoud, there is a button on your right-hand side at the bottom where you can zoom out just a little bit. It's at 146% right now. You can zoom out from that, and that should help you.
It's here.
I saw that. Try it 1 second. Okay, I got it. Thank you. I was looking for that button. The button was not cooperating, but I got it. Thanks so much. Okay. It's time that this paper is a very multidisciplinary paper. It is not strictly business, as I've listened to many excellent paper presentations strictly on business and to some extent international business. But my approach here is very multidisciplinary as it relates to international political economy, international business, international affairs, sociology, and more specifically on institutions and global institutions. The key point of my argument here is that the current world order, as it was arranged after World War II, particularly, and also World War I, it is proving to be ineffective and is not preventing protracted wars, conflict, insurgencies, and many other issues that these institutions were put in place to prevent. So the intended objective of these institutions to prevent and mitigate violent confrontations among nations has failed, as we witness currently around the world. And you have witnessed this actually in the past 75 years since the creation of these institutions, including the United Nations and many others. And that brings in the need for a revisit of the current institutions and a need for creation and smooth transition into a new world order. And I'm trying to skip some of my slides as I can possibly do to economize on our time. And literature review, I can cite some key literature. The first one, Akemoglu, they wrote a paper, Why Nations Fail. Actually, it was a book, Why Nations Fail, in 2012. And they actually recently received the Nobel Prize for their work on institutions and how nations fail because of their institutions not functioning properly, and also weak institutions, and particularly in the developing countries. A couple of other highlights of some other literature review, I would say Bremer, Managing Risk in an Uncertain World, Unstable World, and Parhalad regarding the fortunes of the bottom of the pyramid, dealing with developing countries, and also a couple of others, The Road to Serfdom by Joseph Hayek, that's not Joseph Hayek, by Frederick Hayek in 19 44 in Britain, and also the more recent one by Joseph Stiglitz, The Freedom from Economic and Global Society 2024. All of these are actually primarily concentrating on the economic issues facing us, not so much on the combination of political, economic, and institutions. Each has their own focus. Let me move on with the next one. I'm going to skip that as I've already explained that to some extent. The transition to new order, given its volatile grasp on the geopolitical and global political economy, and there is a need to transit the current order smoothly into this new order. As the current world order proves dangerously incapable of de-escalating preventable global conflicts, we need to shift to the paradigm away from utilization of military force. On the economic front, the American dollar as an international reserve currency is eroding, given its massive use as a weapon of choice against sanctions on nations, such as Iran, Russia, China, Venezuela, and many others. A gradual shift away from the dollar-denominated transaction is evolving and gradually underway. For example, China, Iran, and Russia are part of U.S. Treasury special designated nationals. Collectively, they have 23,000 sanctions on them. And this is not a comprehensive account of the sanctions that exist. Most of these sanctions are unilateral sanctions. Studies by the World Trade Organization indicates that unilateral sanctions erode the global economy by about 12% annually. It shrinks the global economy by about 12%. A bit more on these numbers, and I want to be as quickly as I possibly can. I know you want to get out of here. The global economy, the GNP, is about $105 trillion. Global public debt, countries' debts, is about $100 trillion. So the ratio for the debt to GNP, global GNP, is about 93% in debt. Out of that $105 trillion debt, US owes $35 trillion. So you would say about 33% of the global debt is carried just by the US. And there are many other statistics we can put in support of that. My point is that this is economically unsustainable. This is unsustainable because we also have the debt trap of the developing countries owed to the Western institutions that were created to help them, such as IMF, World Bank, IDA, IFC, and you name it. And also the middle income trap that many developing countries are trapped into a middle income. They're unable to move up into a higher income for many, many years, as they have attempted to move up, but they have not been able to. So these are some of the key structural problems that the developing countries face. Let me move on, and please tell me if I'm very short on time. I'll be
Yes.
quick to end my conversation.
Yes. So if you have another couple of minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Let me go back to this. Okay. Just transition. There already exists some global South-led international structures and institutions to facilitate this transition. I'm not necessarily suggesting to have parallel institutions with Western-created institutions by the South. My idea is that eventually the post-World War II created institutions, primarily by Westerners as beneficiaries on the most part, will be merged with the Southern institutions that will be created. And there's some infrastructures already put in place, such as Belt and Road, BRI, Asian Infrastructure, BIIB, Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Asian Cooperation Organization, Intergovernmental Organization, and many, many others. I'm just giving you a very small selected sample here. And the transitioning to new sustainable global institutions will not come without resistance from the established powers. The new order must convince the existing colonial legacy powers that they will benefit as a sustainable new order evolves. This process will prove and will involve more than just creating parallel institutions to existing ones. It requires identifying and integrating the political risk of conflict between the older regime or older order, which is the existing order, and the newly emerging orders. Today, the need to thoroughly calculate and leverage such risk is evidenced by the failure of existing multilateral institutions, including the United Nations, International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice, to prevent wars and punish acts that are deemed unacceptable based on the rules that were created. In other words, the rule-based structure or order has weakened significantly. The reason for existence is put under question. The reason for existence of the creations of these institutions and creation of a new liberal order is in question by the developing countries, the South so-called, and by others as well.